What's up, everyone? Monster Master Godzilla here, and I'm here to continue my reviews of the Spider-Man movies. We're now up to Spider-Man Homecoming. Now, before I begin this review, let me put you up to speed of what's going on with this film. Now, if you haven't seen Captain America Civil War, this one is taking place after Captain America Civil War, where they introduced Spider-Man in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. This is the very first solo Spider-Man movie in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Spider-Man was first introduced officially introduced in the Marvel Cinematic Universe in Captain America Civil War, where before Spider-Man was officially introduced, his very first pre-mature appearance was in Iron Man 2, where he was a little boy wearing an Iron Man mask. It was a fan theory originally, and it became true. So, then Peter Parker eventually makes his first official appearance in Spider-Man in Captain America Civil War. And he ends up joining Iron Man's team, which is about accurate to the comic book. But really, in the comic book, Spider-Man joined Iron Man's team until he realized the truth about Iron Man, and then he ended up switching sides to Captain America. And Spider-Man was the best part of was one of the best parts of Captain America Civil War. And rather than instead of Andrew Garfield, Spider-Man was played by Tom Holland, which this one he ends up saving this Spider-Man. Tom Holland, the actor playing him, ends up saving the Peter Parker character. Now, I know a lot of people have have hated Tom Holland, but I'm on the love side with this one because I definitely appreciated Tom Holland. I mean, he's great in the role. He really is Spider-Man. I love to believe he is Spider-Man. I am convinced, especially that he's in his 20s and he looked like he's 15 years old. And they wanted someone young to play the MCU wanted someone young to play Spider-Man. And so here we are. So here we go. With the MCU references. The very beginning shows Adrian Toomes, played by Michael Keaton, which you remembered he's Batman, which I always think of him as Batman, better than the Vulture. And he does a great job as the Vulture. Yeah, he went from being DC to Marvel, and now he's going back to being Batman again in The Flash coming up. So anyway, back to the film. The very intro of the film shows that Adrian Toomes ends up being seen during the events of the Avengers, where he took the scraps of Alien. He was originally in construction trying to clean up all the scraps that was lying around. So he ended up taking all the alien technology, and he ended up building the wings. He ended up building the wings that he made, and he ended up building the wings, and it caused him to fly. And he has the helmet that protects his face, and it's not like the comic book. It's not exactly the comic book design of the Vulture I'd go for. I mean, I would have preferred he had his classic look, but remember, folks, sometimes classic costumes don't translate well on screen, so they have to change that. So that's how they have to do that. And the next thing, they also introduced the Shocker, and aka Herman Schultz, aka the Shocker. But they changed that to where Herman Schultz became the second Shocker. But the first Shocker in the film, that the Shocker who became before Herman Schultz was made up for the film, I believe. And they also introduced a villain called the Tinkerer, which the Tinkerer you don't see a lot of. The Vulture and the Shocker are the villains you see the most on screen. And now, for the Spider-Man scenes, it gives us a recap of where he's been through on his perspective during the Captain America Civil War, where he fought alongside Captain America, when he fought alongside Iron Man in that team, in Team Iron Man. And he was going around wearing this costume right here, which is the Stark suit, which looks like similar to Spider-Man's classic costume, but with tech. Before, as seen in the Captain America Civil War, he also had a sweatsuit, which is homemade, which still red and blue and had goggles on there, which is his pre-mature suit. And so Spider-Man ends up having new sets of webbing, and Tom Holland he actually has more comic accuracies because he's able to crack jokes and puns when he's battling bad guys, and he made him very relatable. And they actually have him portrayed as if he was living in Queens rather than just always in a big city. And also they introduced Aunt May in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, played by Marissa Tomei. Now, a lot of people are really are a little annoyed by that because they made Aunt May look old enough to look like Peter's mom. Yeah, like, I'm not joking. They actually made her look like old enough to be Peter's mom. Rosemary Harris, the original, she looks more like the comic than the other two actresses to play Aunt May. Sally Field, not too young or too old, while Marissa Tomei looks like Peter's mom. She could have been Peter's mom. So that's the joke of saying Aunt May keeps getting younger, that's so annoying. Like, come on. And also, what's even more remarkable, and yet very awesome and very refreshing, is that it's not other than it's a reboot, it's not an origin story. So yes, they rebooted Spider-Man without having to start over, which I'm so glad they did that because everyone is tired of seeing Uncle Ben die. Because if you're gonna reboot famous superheroes, you don't have to keep redoing the same origin story. Because we get it. We don't need another origin story. People are sick of it. So there we go. Peter Parker is not very experienced as Spider-Man, and some of the casting choices can be a little off but they could have messed up Spider-Man terribly, but they did an amazing job. It's still amazing to watch, and it's still entertaining. It definitely made up for the mixed reception for Amazing Spider-Man 2. And as I mentioned, Andrew Garfield ended up stepping down from the role of Spider-Man because he was ruined. His version of Spider-Man was ruined by studio interference. So Sony and Marvel Cinematic Universe ended up teaming up, and Sony and Marvel Studios ended up teaming up, and that's how they made Spider-Man into the MCU. You can't have a Marvel Universe without Spider-Man, because he's a staple character. Because that's a crime. It's like making the DC Universe without having a Superman or Batman. Or even a Wonder Woman, because that's a crime. So anyway, the Spider-Man and the cast choices, like when they introduce a new Flash Thompson, the way they picked this one, that's not Flash Thompson to me. And he was kind of watered down as being a bully. Instead of like stuffing him in a locker, they end up teasing him, calling him like Penis Parker, which that's kind of dumb. That's kind of watered down from Joe Manganiello and the one from Amazing Spider-Man 1 and 2. So this Flash Thompson I was not a fan of. And Ned Leeds, which played by Jacob Ballatin, he was hilarious, and he's made as Peter Parker's best friend in the film instead of Harry Osborn, because they were avoiding the Osborns in the family. Because people are tired of seeing Green Goblin in the Spider-Man movies, because it's time to see some villains that have yet to be in a Spider-Man movie, for once, other than besides Green Goblin and Doc Ock, or Venom. So they decided to bring in villains that we haven't seen in films. So that's why we got the Vulture, the Tinkerer, and the Shocker. But the Vulture and Shocker are the ones you only see the most on screen. And also they end up teasing Mac Gargan. They also introduced Mac Gargan, who is a tease, and he's possibly leading up to him becoming the Scorpion. And there's also Aaron Davis, played by Donald Glover, which he was originally campaigned to to play Miles Morales, but because he's too old, the Marvel Cinematic Universe ended up giving him a role, and this time he was playing Miles Morales' uncle, Aaron Davis, who would later become the Prowler, which teasing him to having him become the Prowler. And he even referenced Miles Morales, showing that Miles Morales exists. He says, I don't want these weapons being around. I have a nephew that lives around town. And also, he had in the scene where where Spider-Man's interrogating Aaron Davis with the interrogation mode, he says that a man dressing like a demon. It's saying he's dressing like a demon and saying it's the Vulture. I find that's more of a, I think that's more of a Green Goblin or Hobgoblin trait to me, saying that a man dresses like a demon. And also, Iron Man was seen in a few scenes, but this is mainly focused on Peter Parker / Spider-Man. And now, Iron Man is portrayed as Peter Parker's mentor in film, which, think about it, guys. It made sense because in the comic book, Spider-Man always looked up to Iron Man as a hero. He admires Iron Man. So that's why they portrayed Iron Man as being Spider-Man's mentor in the movies. But the problem is with this story is that they made Spider-Man like Iron Man Jr., which that's not Spider-Man to me. But at least they didn't fuck it up. Too bad. But then Spider-Man, when he tried saving the ferry, which is split in half, Iron Man shows up to help him, and he ends up scolding Peter Parker. And he ends up taking away this costume right here. And he ends up getting stuck with the homemade suit. So Peter is stuck facing the Vulture and the Shocker without the advanced suit. And so he ends up taking on those villains and he saves the day. And also Liz Allen. The weird thing is I find weird is that when they introduced Liz Allen, they made her related to the Vulture. That's not Liz Allen to me. Liz Allen has no relationships to the Vulture in the comics. Just a separate character. So then, after the Vulture is defeated, he was taken to jail. And Zendaya in this film, you may have remembered her from the show Shake It Up, which I've seen her in that show. The first show I've seen her in was Shake It Up with Bella Thorne. And Zendaya plays this character called Michelle, and saying that her name was that her friends call her MJ, which she ends up being a nod to Mary Jane. Which, that's not Mary Jane to me. I would have preferred if it's the real Mary Jane. But this one's still great, but this one's close enough to being Mary Jane. And so Peter ends up meeting up with Iron Man one last time in the film, and he was offered a new upgraded Stark suit, which was Black Spider with gold lines on it, and it's the Iron Spider suit, and it doesn't look anything like the Iron Spider suit, which from the comic book where it's red with a gold spider. But he was offered a role of joining the Avengers. But Peter politely declined. Ends up being alone. And then Iron Man ends up making amends with, and then Tony ends up making amends with Pepper Potts. Finally, and then they eventually decided to get married. And it ended up getting married. And so they got married, and they hit it off together. And so Peter ends up going back home and ended up getting his suit back. And as when he got his suit back, Aunt May shows up. And she said, right when she was close to saying, "What the fuck?" the credits ended up rolling over. So it cuts to the credits. Actually, he almost said, "What the fuck?" Basically, when he found out what happened. Basically, when Aunt May found out her nephew is Peter Parker, that her nephew is Spider-Man the whole time. And so then that's the end of it. And there are two post-credit scenes. One regards to the fact that Adrian Toomes is in jail, ends up meeting up with Matt Gargan, aka the Scorpion, and it's leading up to more stories to it, saying that I have a friend who knows you. I know somebody I heard you know who Spider-Man really is and stuff. And the second post-credit scene is about involving the Captain America, and the PSA is about patience. So yes, Captain America appeared on tape when he was giving PSAs throughout the film, especially when Peter and his friends were in detention at one point. And so, that's it for my review of Spider-Man of Homecoming. If you're collecting the great Spider-Man stuff, this is right up your alley. It's fun entertainment. It's full of comedy, action, and super amazing. And it has critics calling it the best Spider-Man ever, with 5 stars. Like the best Spider-Man movie since the one with Tobey Maguire. So he's like, Tom Holland is like the next Tobey Maguire, like combination of Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield, and it worked, and it worked out awesomely. So, would I recommend Spider-Man: Homecoming? Absolutely, go check it out. It's fun to watch, and that's all I have to say for you guys. And stay tuned for more. Next, I'll be reviewing Venom. And that's all I have to say, folks. And as always, stay awesome, my Monster Masters, and I'll catch you later. And stay amazing, Spider-Man fans. Goodbye.